Hello, everyone, and welcome for our second webinar on robotics and data management. Very pleased to have you with us this evening or this morning, depending when you are joining from. This is our second webinar. We had our first one last month on addressing robotics data management challenges, and the replay is still available for you to watch. And today we're going to be diving a little bit further into practical use case on automation, logistic, and I am very excited to have two speakers together with me. Welcome, Javier and Erwan. Javier, maybe if you can tell us a few words about yourself.
Sure. First, thank you for the invite to this webinar, and so glad to join you today. My name is Javier Miguelez, and I have been working. Well, I am an engineer. I have to say, important, because still many people think that I am an economics guy or a financial guy. I am not. I am an engineer. And I have been working for the mobile robotics industry for the last already 11, 12 years. I have participated in more than 1,500 mobile robotics projects all around the world, many different industries, almost any industry that you can imagine. And yeah, you can say that I have some experience. Knowledge, I am not that sure about knowledge, but experience I do have that I can assure. Everyone,
Thanks, Javier. So I'm Owen. I'm in charge of product at Heex. And today I'm going to share the challenges we see in the market and how we help address them. Obviously linked with what Javier will let us know about the market needs and wants.
Great. So moving forward with our webinar agenda, we will be, as mentioned, looking about the market, especially the need for automation, and we'll get great insight from Javier. And then Erwan will give us a little bit of insight about how a tool like X Smart Data Management Platform can help addressing some of these challenges. Before we start, I'm going to initiate a Q&A session for you to ask any question that you might have during the webinar, and then hopefully we have time at the end to address some of your question. So feel free to already use the Q&A to start a question. Javier, back to you now. Maybe you can give us your insight about this automation, robotics. This is everywhere, especially in logistic warehouse. Yeah, tell us more about it.
yeah, in the end, so I work as a consultant, just to let you know. So what we do also, what we do is we help our customers to be more efficient by automating their logistics flows. That's what we do at Moving Robots. And let's say that the four reasons why end users want to automate are the following ones. First, I would say increase demand for efficiency. That's the first one that you can see there. But when we're talking about efficiency, we are not only talking efficiency from a technical point of view, but from an economical point of view as well. So economics, you want to reduce your operational costs. First one. Second one, the famous labor shortages. Uh, it's funny because you can find labor shortage all around and almost in any country in Europe and in the United States as well. But one of the interesting things is that when it comes to labor shortage, is that maybe you're not able to reach the production that you have to reach if you don't have enough labor, enough people, right? So you are not automating because you need to reduce the operational cost. No, 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 not at all. You're automating because you don't have enough people to perform your operations, and if you don't produce, you cannot sell. So yeah, that would be the second one. Third one, for sure, safety and productivity. And well, for sure, you all know that the need for safety increases every day in Europe and the United States as well, but particularly in Europe. We are all crazy about safety, and nobody wants to have an accident at the factory. So safety is key, and Of course, productivity linked to what we were talking before about efficiency is so linked. And the last one is sustainability and scalability. Scalability, I'm going to give you on sustainability as well. I'm going to give you a really fast example. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a logistics company. Um, they have to suffer or let's say that they work a lot during the Black Friday and during Christmas. And for example, for Black Friday, they have to multiply the people they need by three. But the scalability there is terrible. You cannot go from 100 people to 300 people for just one day. How could you do that? That's impossible. So what they do actually is they automate. So they prepare the automation for the Black Friday, and that's a way of being scalable. If not, you would not be able to be that scalable. And I would like to mention another concept here, which is the RAS, robot as a service. The robot as a service is more and more common today. So this means that you pay only for what your robots do. So if your robots perform 3 missions, you pay for 3 missions. If your robots perform 20 missions, you pay for 20 missions. So scalability is key in today's businesses.
No, that's very interesting. And within that market, that automation market, you identified, let's say, two type of customer group, right? People that basically are looking to automate their operation, as you just explained, but also
Mm.
organization companies that are providing those robotics solution, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So when we're talking about the challenges that the end user finds, let's say that there are two. First, you already have your factory, so we all like to work and to design a green field, but that's quite uncommon. It's a pity, but it's quite uncommon. Most of us we have to work with brown fields 99% of the times.
Yeah.
So in the end, if you're bringing a new technology, that new technology has to adapt to the existing technology and to the existing layout and to the existing people, and that's how it works. So first is that you need to integrate the new solution that you're bringing. The second one is that, and I am coming from the mobile robotics world, so you can imagine nobody knows about mobile robotics. This is absolutely true. Actually, that's why our end users, that's why our clients hire us, because they know nothing about AEVs and AMRs. And people, I mean, if imagine if you are Coca-Cola, what do you know about? You know about making Coca-Cola. You know about mobile robotics, so
Yeah.
you should hire someone, right? That's a bit thing. So these are the two challenges that you are facing if you want to automate. And then if you go to the providers, again you're facing two additional challenges, which are the following. First, and we have discussed about them before, labor shortages, because the problem with labor shortages is that you need someone who has to be more or less trained, and who, in the case of mobile robotics, for example, that is able to or is available for traveling around the world, because you have to perform an installation anywhere. You usually don't install your AGVs at home, so you have to travel. And the second thing is that you have when you start working with a customer, that customer usually grows, and when the automation at your customer grows, you need to grow in the same way. I have experienced in the past a couple of huge programs with AGVs and AMRs, and you start with a very, very, very small project with 20 AGVs, and 2 years later, you find yourself making 200 AGV projects. So that's that you are multiplied by 10. And
Yeah.
for that, you need new people. Again, remember labor shortages, but not only that, you need more AGVs, and you need to manufacture them or to receive them really fast. So scalability is key.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting, and this is also something that we see, and something that has also a direct impact with what we're going to discuss next, which is data management. We discussed in the first webinar how robotics application heavily relies on data, both for the providers in order to ensure the scalability, in order to ensure also the availability of their robots, to diagnose them, to make sure that they are up and running, as well as for the end customer to supervise the operation, to monitor the performance of the system that they are implemented. So maybe Erwan, you could give us more details about these robotics data management challenges and introduce the overall X product approach.
Sure. So here, as Pierre explained, we're going to focus on what we witness out there about when it comes to robotics data. So there's a lot, and the first problem we hear about most of the time is I don't know what we have, where it is. I'm kind of blind. Sometimes it's locked in a technical safe with some secrets, logins, passwords, and only experts can get about it. The second one where I've been here, oh, I finally got access to some data, but now I need to, find the needle in the haystack. There's a lot of data. I don't get it. It's too technical. It's jargons. It's binary stuff. Um, Help me make sense of it. Put it in a high level context for me. And the third one is back to the first point, is usually you have long streams of data for hours on ends, and you're looking at specific situations, and it's all about finding the needle in the haystack. So we're talking about huge data volumes when you have access to them, and quite a manual work still fairly often, even though AI is trying to make a stride here to find the nuggets of interest, so the needle in the haystack in that context. So how do we help with that? So the first concept is the smart data capture. So in a nutshell, it's all about deploying agents on robots or anywhere where you have a CPU and RAM, and centrally configure the situations of interest, your data capture scenario. When this happens, then capture that piece of data for 10 seconds. When that happens, capture that other piece of data. Uh, those scenarios are then pushed to the agents. You get some data back. And when you receive the data, we're going to go into more details. You get an event. That situation number 3 happened, and here is the data you asked for. And you can centrally manage and update that. The second aspect is what we call data democratization, because anyone logging on the platform, whether technical or non-technical, have a higher level view about, oh, I want to see, did I have crash? Yes, no. Oh, I want to see, do I have hangs or pose or whatever. So they can query their data in a very easy way. And if they don't see what they need, they can ask for the data they need fairly easy. So especially in that context, most customers' feedback lies around, oh, finally, now I know what happens when it happens, kind of near real time notification, oops, something happened, situation, this or that happened. Um, we're going to have a quick look at the platform later, but we really strive to help collaboration between operational people, robot users, let's say, who just see robots as means to an end, but they're not experts in robots. But they still want to have a high level view about health and performance. And they want to be able to hand over to more experts when they see something fishy or something missing. Then the collaboration with the robot experts who know about the robots, what they're capable of, and what kind of data they can provide. And then some other people. So Heex is a platform to say, this is what I need, and hand over to other people to get the job done and track the progress. And the third one, where people are quite happy with, is the accelerated diagnostics, because together with the events when the situation occurs and data captured, so you get an event, and then you get all the data you ask for. So then it's super easy to diagnose. You're diving on the 10, 20, 30 seconds data of interest you collected, and you don't have to browse into vast amounts of data stored God knows where. So if we look at how it's deployed more physically, so basically it comes two parts. On the one hand, the one I mentioned are the agents. You put in each and every robot or servers if you have historical data, or if your server is the point where you already have some real-time feed about the data. And then you've got the Heex cloud, where you have a central management with over-the-air updates of those agents about which version they are and which scenario they should be looking after. So on the right-hand side, you can see inside the agents, there are 3 logical parts, I would say. The first one is what we call monitors, where you say, I want to track speed, I want to track shocks, or I want to crash battery level, and things like that. The second aspect is what we call conditions, For instance, when battery level is below 10 or when speed is above 5 meters per second. And then the third part are recorders. So put together, they describe a situation of interest, a data capture scenario we call a trigger. And basically, when the conditions are met, you have a shock and your speed was above a given threshold, so it's a hard bump, it's not a full stop, then you want to record your position, your camera feed if you have any, and any other sensors that make sense. And all of that is managed on the cloud with a collaboration space. And what's interesting, we often get questions about integration into existing data pipelines and robotic systems. Um, Heex not only comes with a UI, we're going to see some screenshots, but you have some command line interface and APIs, so you can script and program against to have Heex act as your intelligent data layer capture. So I describe my scenario of interest. I say what I want to record when they occur, and I get the data I want.
Thank you, Erwan. And obviously, all of that has a purpose, right? It aims to make sure that robotics application automation is as efficient as possible. Because Javier, obviously, there are metrics and there is an economical aspect linked to this automation that you can maybe further explain.
Yeah. So let's start with the first definition: availability. So this is a word that if you're working in automotive industry, you know pretty well. If you are not working in automotive industry, maybe you don't know that much, or you have not heard it very often. But first definition: the availability is the percentage of the time that a mobile robot or a mobile robotic system is up, and let's say that it should be as high as possible. Typically, if you go to automotive industry, the most common required availability is 99.98%. So that means that 99.98% of the time your mobile robotic system is working or your AGV is working. And this is a key number for two reasons. First, because depending on the availability of your mobile robot or mobile robotic system, you will need more or less AGVs. And the second reason is because depending on the availability, you can, let's say, fulfill a, not only a throughput, but you can comply with the needs of the customer. So imagine that I am saying that my availability is 99.98%, but then my availability is 98%. So this means that most probably I'm going to stop the assembly line of my customer at some point, and my customer doesn't want that, for sure. So, yeah, as I was saying before, availability is key for these two reasons. First, it is linked to the number of AEVs that you need, and second, it is linked to the performance of your customer, of the end user. So, it's I always say that it's important to ask for an availability if you are an end user.
Okay.
Yeah.
The key KPI to look at.
Absolutely. And well, obviously, as we discussed, availability is as important for the end user, the customer that wants the robot that they are buying to be
Yeah,
as available as possible,
exactly.
and the provider to make sure that whatever they provide will work and doesn't waste time in diagnosis and so on, right? And
Indeed,
um,
in fact, if you want, so when you are designing a project and you're calculating the number of AGVs you need for a particular application, you need to know your availability. And if you don't need your, if you are not taking into account your availability, I would worry.
yeah,
I would
exactly.
worry.
And maybe the idea now, one is to show from that and how each product can help to increase that availability with a proper data management approach, not only from a product perspective but also from an end user perspective, because we have identified different stakeholders that we look at the data from a different aspect, and you're going to also talk about that with our platform.
Exactly. So, as a quick recap, as we said, since you have your situation of interest uh, describing what you look for and what to record when they happen, we call triggers, you get an immediate notification whenever an incident occurs if you've done the proper trigger. And then you get obviously all of what you recorded, all the details for experts to look at and diagnose. But they have all they need, but not in an 8 hour span to find the needle in the haystack in a 10, 20, 30-second span as you defined. So it's all about being notified and being efficient to understand what's happening and why. So in terms of personas Pierre mentioned, when we designed the solution, we had different personas in mind and we wanted them to collaborate. So if you look at the top line here, I've got an overview of all the data I collected over the past days, weeks, hours, whatever. And the idea of that person, so again, she's by no means a robotic expert. She has robot to get the job done, as explained Javier. So she can have a look over there. She can see, do I have some critical stuff? Is it a large portion of the data I collect? And then she can isolate, does it come from given locations? Does it come from given robots? Does it come from given time of the day? And she can zoom on what seem to be the problematic area, i.e. finding the filters that end up with mostly red bars because there are problems. And then but with a click of a button, it gets into the robot expert to-do list we're going to see next. So the idea is she comes in the morning, she has an overview, everything is fine, I continue with my work, something is problematic, click, 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 okay, it's Monday morning, on line number 3, in area number 2 for kind of robot number 5, click, I get back to my job. Now the second guy is more a robotic expert, so he knows robots, he knows what they're supposed to do, he knows their capabilities. So he will be the one taking the inputs from the user, and the inputs can be simple as a text. I need data that shows me this because I sense that I have many problems when this situation occurs. So he takes that basic need and then he's the one translating it into what we call triggers. What do I need to look at? What are the conditions, the value, the thresholds? What needs to be recorded to fulfill the need? So here he declares the robots. He can import data if it's ROS quite easily with all the data and the capabilities, etc. He designs the data capture scenarios. He deploys the data capture scenarios over the air on the robots, and the data flows back. So that view systems is all about the robot. The second view triggers is all about the data capture scenarios, right? And then you have a third guide because in some cases you need some light code, like few lines of code between single digit to double digit, maybe 3 digits kinds of lines of code, because all robots are different. So we cannot capture the speed of a robot the same way for every robot on the planet. All robots are different and have different sensors. So here the developer will get his to-do list. Oh, to deploy that scenario in those robots, I need half a page of code to capture the LiDAR or the positioning, the current position of the robots, whatever. So it doesn't need to know all the context. It just sees the to-do list, and when it clicks, it can see what is needed, what's the data capture scenario, which robots use this, when is it needed, etc. And when he's writing the code, he just push it onto the done phase, and then it comes back to the experts. He sees it's done. Now it can be deployed, etc., etc. So the high-level idea is really to collaborate between these 3 high-level groups of people. I have a glance at the data. Is it fine or problematic? If it's problematic, where, why, likely, I put it to the robots expert. Robots experts get the grunt of the job. What are my robots? What are they capable of? What are my scenarios? And sometimes I hand over to the developer to develop the specifics, and then it comes back. So the high-level standpoint, the high-level goals we wanted to serve is really about, once you describe your situations of interest as triggers, once they're deployed on your robots, when any situation occurs, you know immediately, and then you get what you recorded fairly quickly for accelerated diagnostics. So it's back to the availability. You can see, do I have problems? Yes, no. If no, you can hone in fairly quickly and know quickly. Obviously, a central management where you can remotely update any data capture scenario you need. And once all the data is captured, anyone can find the data because everything is tagged and labeled. For instance, If I have a robot with some tags such as I'm red, I'm from this manufacturer, and I'm doing that job, and then you have a scenario which itself has some tags, and then you have other tags hidden by the company, all of them get grouped together into the collected information. So you can search according to give me all the crash information from any robots having 4 wheels or more, which are in the Paris vicinity. If you tagged all of that before, and many of those tags are automated, then you're going to find the data and you can make assessments fairly efficiently. So I'm done with the product overview, Pierre.
Yeah, thanks for this overview, Awan, and maybe just now to look back on the value for the market. Just wanted to share some example with actual customer project that we undertook. We have a new product release this month. Nevertheless, we have proven the value of our approach with our current product until now. And one example is a project that we have with the RATP, with the mobility operator in Paris. They operate the bus, the subway, and soon autonomous shuttle. We have deployed our software in their supervision center, and you see that really help in increasing the level of awareness, getting right notification in times, being able to diagnose and supervise operation, and ultimately increase the availability of the service that they are operating, right? As Ravia mentioned. We just have a similar project actually with the airport of Schiphol in Amsterdam. And if you want to have more information, we just released an article on that project on our website. So that's from the end user, the end customer perspective. From the automation provider, the robotics provider, we actually have a word from a senior robotics expert, Antoine, that worked in Conti, Navia, Excel in the past, and testify about this approach that Erwan explained, helping to diagnose and monitor the system health performance of your robotics application, both during the R&D phase in pre-dev, getting better data in order to retrain your model and accelerate your development, as well as during the operation, during the scalability phase of your operation. If you have a large fleet of robots, and as Javier mentioned, if you want to be scalable, you need to have a centralized approach of managing all these robots with the right data set. The flexible and dynamic data management platform for Mix has been an asset for him. We are now arriving at the end of our webinar. I just wanted to summarize these with a few takeaways. So we've seen from Javier that automation is the present and the future, right? It's driving growth, and it will stay, and it will even increase. Availability is really the key, let's say, KPI in order to ensure a return on investment on this automation operation and to increase the adoption of these technologies. We've seen that focusing on an intelligent approach for data capture can really help in diagnosis and managing large robotics application. So this is the product that Erwan has been describing. And this data democratizing approach, which help both operational and engineering team to get the right data for the right usage and automate all of that process. Any additional thought or something that I might have missed, Javier, one before we move to the question?
Not really from my side. I insist just what you're saying here. Um, Automation, and I insist, is not an option, not anymore. It was in the past an option. Today, maybe the question is if I'm going to use this technology or the other, but the question is not if I have to automate or not. You have to automate. Absolutely.
That's a very good final word. We have some time to cover some question, and I see there are questions that have been already asked in the Q&A, so I'm going to put it on the screen. So the first question is probably for you, Erwan. Can you let us know how we can integrate X in the data pipeline, right? Integration and making sure that it works with the existing software and tools that are in place. Erwan, we don't
Sorry,
hear
I'm
you.
on mute. Better now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Indeed, it helps to answer questions. So there are different levels to that questions. At least there will be different levels to my answer. The first one will be the data formats. Will the data you capture is something I can read and understand and consistent with my pipeline? And the short answer is yes, because if it's ROS-based information, we just capture ROS as MCAP files and you continue your way happily ever after, no change. But instead of having gigabytes, terabytes files, you have smaller files because they're on subsets of topics and a subset of time frame. Now, if it's custom data for custom robots, the short answer is it's absolutely the case because you are the one writing the recorders. In the agent part, when the situation occurs, we record the data. That is done through a tiny piece of code. We provide, mockups and examples, but kind of the developer codes it. So if you want the data in the given format, that's where you do the writing. So what you get in the end, it's what's come out of the recorder. So any data format you need and want. So that's about the data format and readability. The second aspect is, can it be a step into the data pipeline? The short answer is yes. You have the command line interface. You'll have more and more APIs. So you can plug it into the rest of the systems, and you don't have to use our UIs to see the data, collect the data, etc. Have I answered the question? Anyone asking it? Well, if there's no other question, I guess
I
yes.
believe
They
so.
will, they will question you again, most probably.
I think there is a question from another question that just popped in. What is the latest project he has been working on, and what were the... So I believe this is more a question for you, Javier. Like, what were the latest project that you have been working on? Who did you help? And from your perspective as a consultant, what was the data challenges that you were able to observe?
I am participating right now in a project, and regarding, so I guess that the challenge that we are facing right now is that the way the provider thinks he has to measure the data is different than the way the user or the customer thinks the data have to be measured. So I'm gonna give you a fast example. The end user is saying you need to comply with 30 movements per day, or with 30 movements per hour, and the provider says, okay, but I am not doing those 30 movements per hour that you are asking for, because instead of doing 30 movements with a route length of 100 meters, I am making 20 movements with a different length. Okay, so the thing is that the customer thinks only about the number of transportations without taking into account the length of the route,
Mm.
which is a key. So the way let's say the way the end user measures is different than the way that the provider they're using to measure. So it's in most of the cases when we think about one KPI, that KPI is linked to another to a second KPI, and you have to take that into account. It's important. So, for example, in this case, it's not only the number of transportations is not like a pure number. It's linked to others, and unless you connect them, it doesn't make sense. And
Okay.
then you have to convince your customer that they're really this is the way of measuring.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
for me, that's so it's not about how you collect the data; it's about how you transfer those data into useful information.
How you make sense of it.
Exactly, and how you also bridge the gap between the end, customer view perspective and the provider perspective, so that we speak the same
Exactly,
language.
and this is like a very simple example. In some cases, it's much worse.
Yeah,
So the way the end user thinks we have to measure is different than the one the vendor thinks. Um,
okay.
yeah,
Thank you. We have one. I guess we have time for one last question, and I see there is another one here. You mentioned efficiency a lot. Can you recap your key arguments? So,
I'm gonna answer that one very fast if I can, Pierre.
Nazi, go ahead.
If you don't measure, you cannot improve. It's
Yeah,
impossible.
absolutely.
So efficiency is about improving.
Yeah,
The way to improve it never ends. You need to measure. That's where efficiency comes from. How do you know you're more efficient if you are not measuring? It's impossible.
absolutely. And you measure with data, Iwan, right?
Yeah.
With the
Yes,
right
that's
data.
where we can help too.
Perfect. Great. So I guess this is the end. Thank you very much. It was a very lively conversation and very insightful. Just as a reminder about our new product release, and for whoever is interested to know more, you can contact Adrien, who was attending our first webinar. We're going to have our next webinar session in December on the 16th, and it will be an interesting dialogue between a venture capital, so financial experts heavily investing in robotics, and tech innovators with our CEO, talking about scaling robotics. With that, thank you very much for everyone who was able to attend. And Javier, Erwan, again, a big thank you for your contribution and your insights.
It was a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thank
Have a nice
you.
day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.